Hey, everybody. The webinar is going to be starting in a little bit. We still have a few minutes. We're still getting some attendance here. And the webinar right now is being broadcast on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And so I'm hoping that you are jumping in and going to see the webinar. We need just a few more minutes to get some people jumping on. I need to give them a chance just to make sure the message has gotten out and people are getting on. But we've had some really good attendance of the webinar. The last 3 or 4 ones that we've done. The last one that we did was all part of this digital transformation knowledge series. And we had people on 4 different continents. We had people in Chile and people in Madrid, and we had people in the Asia Pacific region. I saw we had somebody in Hong Kong, and we had people, of course, from the US and also in Brazil. And the one before that, we had people from other countries. And so it's really been pretty exciting because, this message of digital transformation is really getting out there and getting a lot of traction. And so it's really actually pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to see people, get enthusiastic about digital transformation. And let's see, last night late, I was on a video conference call with a gentleman down in Papua New Guinea, and he was excited about the digital transformation program and wanted to talk to some airlines about it. And he was pretty excited. And let's see, this morning I shot some videos with somebody who was in Spain. So there's a lot of people all around the world that are getting pretty excited about the digital transformation, knowledge series. And, we're finding we're really connecting with the message, and we're really pretty much finding our voice and what it is that people are looking for. And but the real thing is that we're really trying to help people in their journey of digital transformation. It's something that's happening all around us. And so we're really trying to leverage the technology here and use the technology to our advantage so that we can get the message out about digital transformation. It wasn't that long ago that you couldn't do this. I mean, you couldn't broadcast a message out around the world and have people instantly, be able to access it and get this information. But tonight, actually, I'm broadcasting to you from the Seattle, Washington area in the United States. So it's coming up. It's a little bit after 7 o'clock here now. We got just a little bit of a late start. And we're just going to give it a few more minutes before we get going on the webinar here. But I'm broadcasting from Seattle, Washington area, and home of Boeing in the Seattle area. And it's actually what brought me out here a number of years ago in this area was to go back and spend some time doing consulting and doing sales and doing things at Boeing. And so that's how I got out here. But really, it's really pretty exciting just to see the reaction from everybody on how things are going, and people are really engaged and interested in the subject of digital transformation. So actually, it's after 7 o'clock now, my local time. And so we're going to go ahead and get started on the webinar. And so let me jump ahead here. Going to jump off of this music here and continue on with the webinar. All right. Okay. Excellent. All right. So really very exciting to be bringing this message to you tonight. And as part of our digital transformation knowledge series, I've found that there's some areas that have gotten a lot of traction. And one of the areas that's got a lot of traction really was with salespeople in the industry and business owners and new business owners, within the industry. And you say, how do I know that it got traction? Well, I get messages from people, and LinkedIn also gives you some feedback on people that have viewed, different things, viewed posts, viewed webinars, and the top 2 people, the top 2 groups that have been watching a lot of the posts and paying attention to a lot of the digital transformation messages that we've been putting out have been salespeople and business owners. And on the attendance on the webinars, we've had a lot of people from I've had airlines and I've had MROs, and we've had software companies, and we've had quite a broad range. But when you take a look at the numbers, the total numbers of people that have been engaged and coming to our messaging, there's been a lot of salespeople and business owners. And so what I decided to do tonight was do this pop-up webinar and to talk about sales. I mean, I've done a lot of sales activity in my life, and I've had people asking me, how we've done, well, and how we increase sales so much, and how do we scale it, and so that's really exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. And so let's just jump right into it. So I'm going to start out by saying, this is just my definition of what is sales mastery. This was just something I wrote down. To me, it means meeting and exceeding the customer's needs while confidently closing deals, making more money, and spending less time doing it. So first of all, is that business is all about producing revenue, all right? And if you're producing revenue, businesses in aviation, we're selling things, and people are buying things. We're selling tickets, we're selling software, we're selling parts, we're selling airplanes. I mean, all across the industry, we're selling, and there's people involved in selling, and so selling is quite an important component of the industry. And I've seen so many people that are frustrated, in the sales, business, in the sales industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get into this, on really what causes frustrations with people. But I wanted to start out with this slide because I think it's really important that people focus on the fact that meeting and exceeding the customer's needs, is the only way that we're going to be able to sell. All right. If you want to sell something to somebody has to have a desire for something. And they have to be willing to create an exchange. They have to be willing to be able to exchange money, for something, for products or services. And so we have to be able to, meet the customer's needs. We have to be able to, meet their desires. And if their desires are to buy, an engine, like you see in this PowerPoint slide here, then, being able to sell them an engine is meeting their desires. And, all the while a salesperson, though, and a business owner, we need to be able to be confidently closing deals. And so our ability to close deals as salespeople is the only thing that matters in sales. All right. There's lots of people that sell, and there's less people that close. And so, sales mastery in sales is really all about closing deals. Now, for a salesperson, the motivation, for doing that, we have personal satisfaction in things that we do, but basically we work because we want to make money. And so, the salesperson that's successful wants to make more money, and they want to spend less time doing it. All right. Now, that doesn't mean, that we're lazy or that we're spending less time doing something. I've spent massive amounts of time. I've spent 2 times, normal amounts. I've spent 80, plus hours a week, 90, 100 hours a week, and focusing on sales. And, that doesn't create a work-life balance. And so really, we want to be able to close more deals. We want to make more money, and we want to be able to spend less time doing it. And so that's how I captured it. And, you got to think about this for a minute. And, there's all, in the sales business, we have highs and we have lows, and, we find ourselves, on highs and lows constantly. And the reason that we do is because, a good salesperson is engaging with prospective clients. And, you're going to continue to get yeses and nos. And the majority of responses that you get are no's. It's been said that from statistics that it takes 7 to 12, reach outs to somebody to be able to close a deal. And 80% of the deals are closed in the last 20% of the reach outs. And so what we find is that many people give up before they even get there, and they never even get the deal. And so there's really a lot of disappointment. And so, you have to understand is that there's a lot of reasons why, sales can fail. All right. If you're a sales professional, you're a new business development professional, and you're in this business and you're saying, yeah, but there's a lot of things that have prevented me from being successful in sales. Yeah, I know that. It's not all about effort, and it's not all about, the focus and going right after it. Sometimes the product isn't right. And sometimes, sometimes the economy isn't right, but what we tend to do is we tend to, blame those things. But there are reasons why, as a sales professional, that you haven't been successful in the past. And, you know, and that's okay. You know, the reason I'm doing this webinar right now is because I want to speak to people. You know, I'm sitting down on my stool right now. And the reason I'm sitting on a stool is because it makes me kind of comfortable just sort of having this conversation with you out there, with you salespeople out there. And so, you know, I wanted to say that, you know, I know that you look at this and you say, you know, am I going to get any good information out of this? You know, should I be here? Should I take time to do this, you know, over the next hour? I really want to encourage you to do it because, you know, I really think we're going to share some really good information. And even though, you know, there's been people that have got in your way and thwarted you and maybe competition and a lot of reasons why you haven't been successful in the past, you can be successful. You know, there is the opportunity to be able to get out there and to be able to sell and to close deals and to make money. And one of the great things about the sales profession is that if you're in a commission-based kind of sales, your income is virtually unlimited. All right, is that, you know, the amount of deals you close can put you in an unlimited kind of condition. And so, you know, I want to encourage your dreams to make money and to change the world and to get praised for success. You know, my brother, he's a salesperson. He has been for many years, and I don't even know how many years he's been the top salesman. And, you know, he's pretty proud about that because he keeps getting to be the top salesman in his industry. And, you know, I think that's exciting when we feel encouraged because we get, you know, rewarded for being the top salesperson, or maybe we get sent on a trip. I know somebody that was the top salesperson. They got sent on a trip to France. You know, those are really encouraging. Those are exciting things. And so, you know, we want to think about the successes that we would have and to be able to achieve those kind of things. So let me jump to the next slide. There we go. What are the goals of this webinar? So what can you really expect from this webinar? So, you know, on this webinar, I'm going to provide you some good information. We're going to talk about 3 secrets to sales and sales mastery. And we're going to talk about that. That's what you'll get from it. So I'm hoping that as a result of this, you'll get some good information and it'll help you to achieve some of your goals and help you to do a better job of completing, you know, closing sales in the future. Also, are you in the right spot? Is this webinar for you? You know, if you're a salesperson, you know, you're in the right spot. All right. If you're a new business person, you're in the right spot. If you're a business owner, you know, you're in the right spot because you care about revenue and you care about increasing sales and you care about the success of your sales organization. Now, if you've joined this webinar because you're in an airline or an MRO and maybe you're not directly involved in sales, we're going to talk some about digital transformation. But, you know, we're mostly going to talk about sales tonight. And so we're going to focus on that. But, you know, part of the process of being successful in sales is understanding your customer and understanding really what it is that you're selling. And so we're going to talk about that as well. So, you know, if you want to be on the line here tonight and you want to talk about, you know, learn some things about digital and digital transformation, we're going to talk about that as well. All right. And, but one thing's for certain is that, you know, companies are all on a different journey in acquiring revenue, right? There are companies that are new and they have challenges of maybe, you know, getting their product out there and people learning about their product and really what it is. And so we have this problem of people knowing who we are. And if you're in the middle of a journey, maybe people start to know who you are, but maybe, you know, people haven't really started to adopt the product or solution or technology yet. And so you may find yourself in this journey where you're you know, challenged by people adopting the technology. And then, you know, maybe you're further down in the journey where you have products which are, you know, sold frequently and in large volumes, and your goals are just to find new customers and, you know, find what the customers need and how to better satisfy their needs so that they'll buy more. So we have different people that are in different places in their journey. And so, you know, is this the right place for you? I believe it is. But the goals of this webinar are really to satisfy the needs of those different people on the webinar. Okay. So part of you know, us jumping on this webinar together is that, you know, I posted this on LinkedIn and I posted this on YouTube, and you know, on LinkedIn I have a pretty decent, you know, following of people, and so, you know, maybe you've seen me on LinkedIn, maybe you've seen some of our posts, maybe you've watched some of our webinars. I hope you have, and if you haven't, you know, we do webinars every Wednesday. We do them in different time zones, and so this coming Wednesday, we're actually doing one Wednesday in Asia Pacific time, so it's actually Tuesday in Seattle. But we try to do a webinar every Wednesday on a different topic in order to be able to communicate digital transformation and how people can be successful in digital transformation, because it's our goal to move aviation forward further and faster than we ever have before by leveraging technology and digital transformation. And how does that apply to sales? It applies to sales in a lot of ways, and that's how we're going to talk about it tonight. But I got to tell you is that aviation really has been one of my passions. And so people want to know who I am. All right. Well, I've been in aviation for over 40 years. And, I soloed at a young age. I got my private pilot's license. I was only 15 and a half when I soloed. I went on to get a commercial, and I have a commercial instrument multi-engine. And I'm a A&P mechanic, and I have an engineering degree from Purdue, and I have a business degree. But, those are just some of the things that were in my background. But one of the things about myself is that, I've always been enthusiastically engaged in aviation. And so it's really a passion of mine. It's a passion of mine to see aviation continue to be successful. And, one of the things that's really hard is that aviation's gone through good times and they've gone through bad times. And in the hard times, aviation struggles, all right? And even though, we need air transport, in order to be able to have commerce in the world, when aviation struggles, that means people travel less for leisure and people travel less for business, and the economy shrinks. And so having an efficient aviation industry is extremely important. It's important to the success of our economy. One of the things that every country in the world practically has is their own airline, all right? And the reason for that is because airlines provide commerce, airlines provide connection, airlines provide transport. And so if you look at, aviation and transport, it's something that connects us as people. And, for many years now, I have been traveling internationally. I think I traveled first internationally in the early 90s, I think. And I started to go meet people around the world. And I've traveled to countries all around the world. And it's amazing to me to be able to meet people and to meet people, different cultures and how they are and how they're different. And it really is great to be able to connect with people. And aviation connects people. It connects the world. It creates commerce. It creates an economy. It connects the world. And so it's such an important part that it's efficient and it's successful. All right. Now, for us to have efficiency in aviation, we have to be able to have products and services which are sold, at an efficient price point, so that airlines and businesses can afford it, and that everybody can have a balanced economy and everybody can make money in that economy. And salespeople are the ones who make that happen. All right. And so it's important that we are efficient in our sales process, and we're getting new products out to people, and we're letting people know about products, and we're giving people good deals, and the businesses that we're working for are making money. But all of this is really an extremely important part of the success of aviation, is really what it is. And so I am passionate about that, and I'm excited to be able to be, part of aviation. And so, going to my next slide is, I've always been a person that thinks big and wants to create success, all right? And as a salesperson, we need to do that. We need to think big. We need to think about creating success. We need to close deals. And most recently, I came off of helping a company to grow. It was a SaaS software-based company in aviation maintenance, providing aviation maintenance software. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then prior to that, I was involved in consulting and sales in Boeing, and I retired from there. And before that, I was involved in Northwest Airlines and Jeppesen. And I really have worked in over 200 different aviation aerospace companies in doing either IT deployments or supporting them in sales efforts or a variety of different roles. And so I really have a broad understanding, I believe, of the aviation industry and what the customers need and what their needs are. And that's really an important part to success of aviation. In the last few years, I traveled 1 million miles, and last year alone, I traveled 480,000 miles. And I'm going to talk about that in order to be able to create success in the business I was in. But I've also started 24 businesses in my career and created success, out of starting businesses. But you can see some of the logos there on the chart of some of the different, companies that I have worked for over the years. And so I really have a broad, understanding of different aspects of the aviation industry. Now, as salespeople, I wanted to jump on this chart. I wanted to talk to you about this chart. And I know that the video covers a small portion of this, and so I'll talk to it. So I apologize for that in advance. But I want to talk to you about some case study clients and what I've done in sales, over the years. Is that I just came off of a maintenance software company and closed $50 million in deals, there. And so, I felt like we moved from a position where we increased the sales dramatically, and we increased the sales dramatically to the point where the company was able to secure new investment because the picture of the company, looked so good. And when I was at Boeing, I worked across the enterprise, and I worked with different parts of the organization to be able to enable them to be able to bundle sales packages, to be able to take maybe single products that were in single units or in single business units and bundle them so that we were able to increase sales. And I was responsible for or participated in sales of about $70 million there. And prior to that, I did consulting business. And when you're in the consulting business, you're selling yourself. And you basically have to sell your services is what you have to do. And I sold over $2 million, worth of consulting services, in the consulting business. And prior to that, I did some land development work, and we actually, were involved in selling, a lot of different things there, but we actually built a portfolio of $30 million worth of real estate. So in that business, we built up that real estate portfolio. And then I was involved in retail businesses. We had some retail businesses that we owned, and we grew that business to be $30 million a year in revenues, in operating revenues. And then other retail businesses were around, $15 million a year. But those are just some of the highlights of some of the things that I've done recently. And as salespeople, I tell you those things because it's important that you understand is that it's possible in really any economy to be able to create sales, because no matter what the economy is, there's sales that are occurring. They're just in different sectors or in different amounts. And it's important, now that aviation is strong, that we're engaged in sales and we're creating success and we're creating efficiencies. So when there's some times that are maybe down some, that the businesses can continue to thrive and they'll be more efficient. But I've also done other things, with respect to helping businesses and sales organizations. Like I've engaged with some new product startup companies and helped them to be able to get their name out there, to be able to communicate their message, communicate their vision, and use technology and social media to be able to get their name out there and to be able to help them to be successful. So we did webinars and new leads. And then I helped another business called Lightshine, which was an e-commerce business. And I helped that business to create 5,000 new customers, in an 8-month time frame, which really was pretty amazing. And so that was really a very successful adventure. And then I've worked with other companies like this consulting company to be able to help them to increase their social media exposure and for people to know who that they were. And the results I got back from him is that when we did that the activity that was now coming into him was 3 times, what it was prior to us doing that. And so the reason I focus on these case studies is because as salespeople, we need to understand that the actions that we take do determine the outcome and the results, all right? The things that we do are not on autopilot. And so we're going to talk about, how it is that we can create success and sales mastery in sales, all right? So we're going to break that down. And we're going to break that down into 3 core, as I'm going to call them, secrets of sales mastery, okay? 3 core secrets, all right? And so this is what we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes or so. We're going to cover secret number 1, which is just showing up, all right? And secret number 2 is understanding the customer. And secret number 3 is doing the work, all right? And those are all 3 really important parts of creating mastery in sales and creating success in sales. All right, let's go to the first one, is showing up, all right? I have a question. Are you showing up for work, all right? No, I mean, are you really showing up for work, all right? We've all worked with people who show up for work and they're not really there. They're not really engaged. They're off doing other things and they're not really there. They haven't really showed up for work, right? But, I consider myself to be, a high energy person and a high potential person. And I've always been that way ever since I was young. But I got to tell you that there was a period of time in my life where when I had my own businesses, that I used to think in my mind that, hey, I really am efficient at what I do. And, I work 10 times harder than everybody else. And I actually used to think that, I could work 10 times harder for a small amount of time and then I wouldn't have to work the rest of the time. And I didn't produce the results that I needed to produce. All right. Basically, what happened is that I was slacking off is what was happening. And I had this self-pride really that was in me that made me think that, hey, I'm really good and I can work smaller amounts. But the result was I really wasn't working up to my full potential. All right. I could have done a lot better. It was actually during that time that I was doing consulting, and I was doing quite well, financially, and I really could have done better though. I could have done even more if I would have actually just engaged, if I would have really just showed up, for work. And so, I just want to say a few things about that. Is that, are you engaged? Are you really doing the work? I mean, do you really know what's necessary to get the job done? And our first reaction that we all have is that, yeah, of course I do. But I know that every one of us has the capacity to do more. All right. And it's also been said that everybody has 24 hours in one day. All right. The richest people have 24 hours in one day, and the poorest people have 24 hours in one day. And we have 24 hours in one day. And how we spend that time to be able to create, sales and closing deals, really dictates how successful we are. Are we focusing on doing the right thing? Do you know what is necessary to get the job done? Are you focusing on the right things? Are you really doing the work? All right. And so it's really important that when we engage, that we've engaged our minds and we've engaged, into our jobs, and that we're doing the right things. We're focusing on the things which are going to be closing deals and not focusing on the things which are small. I wrote this down here. I said that most people just move through life doing a partial job of everything and complaining about how everything around them is stopping them from success. Hey, listen, we have to take responsibility for our own actions. We have to grasp the things that are around us and say, hey, I'm going to be successful regardless of the circumstances that surround me. Okay. Is that, we have to take responsibility for our actions. And so if you want to be successful, and if you want to engage in sales, you have to have enthusiasm. You have to have belief. You have to have energy. You have to take responsibility for the things around you, and you have to take that action. Now, we're going to talk about how technology can help you scale that and create more success, but you still have to take action. But we want to take action on the right things, all right? We want to create success that's the most efficient possible. But the big question is are you showing up and are you doing the work? Next is one of the pieces to the puzzle that we talk about in digital transformation is we start with belief, and that's really showing up and believing that you can do this and doing all the work and creating success. That's number one. That's really secret number one. Next is really understanding your customer. All right. And so secret number two is understanding your customer. Do you understand the people that you're selling to? Do you understand their business? Do you understand what motivates the people that you're selling to? It's extremely important to understand is that I've traveled all around the world. All right. And I've seen cultures everywhere. And when we travel to different places around the world, there are different things that motivate people. All right. I've traveled to certain portions of the world where I said, hey, we can really do a great job of reducing labor cost and create efficiency. And one of the companies told me is that, labor cost isn't our problem. Labor cost is abundant. Labor is abundant and labor is cheap. And so, our biggest problem isn't reducing labor, right? And so I didn't exactly understand my customer when I made that kind of a comment to them. And so, I had to redirect my sales strategy, and I had to look at what was important to them. All right. In this particular region where I was talking to them, quality was a problem. They couldn't get people to complete a job with the same level of quality that maybe they could in other parts of the country. All right. And so the software solutions that I was presenting to them needed to focus on how do we help them to improve quality. All right. So what I say is that you need to understand your customer. You need to know that people are the people that buy from you. All right. And so understanding your customer and what motivates them in this digital transformation journey that we're on is an extremely critical part of the entire process at this point. Okay, next, the business. Understanding your customer from a business process perspective, right? So you need to understand the business, all right? You need to understand the workings of this business. You need to understand what are the key performance indicators of this business and what is actually creating success for them. I just talked about that a little bit right now. But if you're a salesperson, let me just tell you this, is that I've worked with a lot of salespeople over the years, right? And the reason that I have chosen to engage in aviation is because I understand aviation. And my approach has always been to take more of a consultative kind of an approach and sell into the aviation industry with the knowledge that I have of all the companies that I've worked with. Now, I don't know everybody's business. I don't do that with an arrogance. I do that with an ability to appreciate what people are doing in their business. And so one of the things that you need to do is you need to understand your customer and appreciate what they're doing in their business, and to be able to help them to understand how your solution fits into what they are trying to accomplish in their business. That's extremely important. That's consultative selling, which you need to understand your customer. Now, that's a rare, occurrence, right? I have to say is that I've met a lot of people in the world that are salespeople, and they don't take the time to understand their customer. And they're really all about just selling maybe a product or a solution and not really taking the time to understand the customer, right? Now, you can maybe sell in that environment, but you will not be the most successful person. You will not be the master of sales unless you understand the subject matter of what you're dealing with. And if you are able to, in a consultative manner, listen to your customer, understand what their problems are, and to be able to help them to understand how your product meets the needs of what their business is trying to accomplish, you will be able to be successful in sales. Listen, think of it this way. If you can come up with the one big thing that customer of yours wants, the biggest desire that they have, and if you can present your product in a manner which shows them clearly that if they don't buy your product, they will not be successful in accomplishing what it is that they're trying to accomplish, you will win that deal. And so it's very important for you to understand the customer and their businesses, the culture and the customer and their business processes in order for you to be able to be successful in selling to them. Okay. Also, understanding your customer also boils down to understanding technology. All right. We are in a business today. We are in an aviation industry today that has fallen behind. It's fallen behind in the area of technology. All right. I told you I was in the land development business some, and that was another area where, people have fallen behind. Technology has not been widely implemented in the construction and land development business. Aviation, I compare it to that because aviation has fallen behind in technology. And we have so much opportunity to be able to advance that you need to understand that. You need to understand your customer, and you need to understand what the benefits are to him of implementing technology so that he can see how your product can be successful. All right. So let's use a maintenance example. All right. So it's kind of like if you're working in a hangar and you're working off of paper, and you're like most maintenance facilities are. And if you're one that's not working on paper, then congratulations. But I traveled, like I said, 480,000 miles last year, and 80 to 90%, 85 to 90% of the maintenance operations out there today are working off of paper task cards. All right, and that is extremely inefficient. It's just evolved over time. Now, you might say, well, yeah, but that's the way it's been for many years. Yeah, but the time is to change, all right? There's reasons why that people didn't use technology before to solve that problem. But all the factors have come together right now today to be able to allow people to convert over to using electronic task cards and electronic signature. So people should be moving in that direction because it has such a dramatic impact on efficiency and a dramatic impact on quality, and safety. And so, people need to be moving in that direction. Now, if you as a salesperson don't understand all the factors that are affecting them, then it's difficult for you to be able to work with them so they can understand why your product is so valuable. So as a salesperson, you really need to understand technology. You need to understand technology, and you need to understand how it impacts the business, and you really need to understand what makes people successful. So understanding your customer from a culture perspective, and from a business process standpoint, and a technology perspective, that fits right into digital transformation. It fits right into the ways that we need to transform the industry, and it fits right into sales and how we should be approaching consultative sales, in this business. Okay, next slide. All right, so secret number 3 is doing the work. All right. So what do I mean by that? So in order for you to be able to increase sales, you need to do the work. All right. This is really one of the obvious, most fundamental parts of selling, is that you need to do the work. You can't just sit back and wait for a sale to come, because the sales won't come. All right. They just won't come. Is that you need to be engaged. So let's talk about that for a minute. All right. So in order to be able to do the work and to do it properly, there's a number of key factors that you need to be looking at. Is that you need to evaluate your product placement. All right. You need to evaluate the people that would be using your product, and is this product going to the right people? All right. If you go into an organization, are you talking to the right people about this product? So who would be the user of the product? All right. Who would be the approver of the product? Who would be the gatekeeper that would support the approval of the product? Who would be the financer of the product? The CFO maybe. Are there other initiatives, that are going on that might prevent the product from being implemented? And so you need to look at your product and say, am I going after the right people? Is this really the product that people need? Is this the solution that's going to be successful for their business problem? And when we're evaluating digital transformation, and when we're evaluating technology, and we're looking at business processes, they feed into each other, right? Technology can't be implemented just for technology's sake. If you're out there selling technology for somebody and they don't have a clear vision of how they're going to use it, it's going to fail, and you're going to fail. Maybe you'll make a sale initially, but maybe you're going to lose it because that project wasn't successful. And so if you don't understand how that technology is going to be used in their business, you stand failure. And if that project fails, well, then your application, your software, your hardware, it's failed at that point. And so you can't take the perspective it's the customer's problem to understand their business problem. It's really your problem to understand their business problem with them jointly together, and to be able to work together to find the right solution for them that can be implemented in the right place. All right. Okay, next. Let's talk about the market. All right. If you want to increase your sales, if you want to be able to hit the right people, you can't spend your time focusing on the people that aren't going to buy. And so you need to work to understand the most likely candidates for your products or services. All right. You need to go look at the marketplace, and you need to look at studies, and you need to look at data, and you need to talk to people. You need to get firsthand information from people and find out what it is, that people want. All right. And you need to find out who are the people that want that, and what is their ability to pay. Let's go right into that. What is their ability to pay? If they can't pay, then why are you spending time with them? If they're telling you that they're going to have the money next year, or the year after, or the year after, okay, you can give them some time because maybe you have long sales cycles. But listen, the goal here in shortening sales cycles is figuring out how to close deals faster. And if you want to close deals faster, then you need to increase the volume of people you're working with that are high probability customers. That's the only way to increase revenue in the short term. And then have a balance in the way that you're approaching customers in the long term, and giving them information about those that are going to buy next year and the year after, because you have to have a pipeline. We all know you have to have a pipeline. All right. Next is pipeline quality management. All right. You have to have a pipeline. All right. And you have to be able to fill that pipeline. And with that full pipeline, it needs to be filled with quality prospects. All right. I went to work for a company not too long ago, And when I went there, it was represented to me that the pipeline was full. There was lots of prospects that were going on, and so I joined in to help them to be successful in sales. And when I got there, I would say somewhere between 2 weeks and 2 months, the pipeline was completely evaporated, because in reality, the items that were in the pipeline, the prospects and the leads that were in the pipeline were way too early in the process, and they didn't represent quality, prospects at that point. And so the end result is that, it took a long time to be able to build up that pipeline, or it took longer to be able to build that pipeline than what it should have, because there should have been, clients, there should have been potential clients in that pipeline. And so it's important that you're evaluating the quality of prospects as they're going into the pipeline, and you're nurturing them, and you're managing them, and you're following up with them. That's a critical part of the process. Follow-up is the major way that you're going to manage the quality of that pipeline. All right. First of all, finding the right people by looking at the right product placement, by evaluating the marketplace and going after the right clients, the right prospects in the first place. And then when they go into the pipeline as a potential prospect, that you continue to follow up and manage and evaluate this. Do they have the money? Are they really interested? Do we have the right product? All those different factors which require, follow-up and understanding and communication with the customer to ensure that it's a quality pipeline. Because the last thing you need is to follow somebody for, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then get to the end and find out that they don't have any money, or it really isn't what they were looking for, and they went off and bought something else. You just wasted a serious amount of time. You wasted your time, and you don't have time to waste. When you're trying to accelerate sales, you do not have time to waste. So it's very important that you're managing of your pipeline in order to be able to accelerate your sales. All right. So let's talk about accelerating your sales. Is that how do you accelerate your sales? Accelerating your sales comes from understanding of your customer, number one, all right, and applying yourself to the right parts, to the right prospects, and ensuring that you're focusing on the high value prospects at that point, all right? And then there's 2 more important pieces. We need to scale. Once you've got that positioning, you've got the right product, and you got the right market, and you're putting people into the pipeline, you need to scale, all right? The only way to be able to be successful in increasing your sales at that point in time is to scale, is to get more leads, to be able to filter those leads out, is to find the ones that are the most likely to be able to sell, and then communicating with those ones that are the most likely to be able to sell, and move them to a position where they understand your product and you can close the deal with them. All right. And so scaling of the volume of leads that you're going after and the volume of prospects that you're chasing is extremely critical and important to scaling. And the only way that you can do that is by having additional people to be able to help you, to address that. But the better way to do that today, the alternative to that, is to scale using technology. All right. And so everything that's happening around us in the industry, is leveraging of digital transformation, is leveraging of technology in our businesses to be able to create greater efficiencies, all right? And we need to apply those greater efficiencies to sales as well. We need to apply those techniques of technology to be able to manage our pipeline, technology to be able to manage our customer relationship management system, technology to manage our reaching out to people, whether it be phone calling or whether it be through emails, and whether it be reaching out to people through social media. All right. And we need to scale that. We need to manage that. And we need to use those technologies to, number one, to be able to scale, and number two, to be able to filter out the people which are not viable prospects. So when it gets down to applying the actual physical touch labor, that we've reduced the amount of physical touch labor that's required for us to be able to close a deal. That's the only way you're ever going to be able to reduce your time, is to be able to scale with technology so that your physical touch labor on the customers that you're trying to close is smaller at that point. All right. So accelerating of sales is an extremely important part of creating mastery in sales. And we need to leverage technology, to be able to do that. All right. customer requirements, is that you need to continue to be able to understand customer requirements. And one of the aspects of that is that you need to understand their key performance indicators, all right? As salespeople, we frequently have difficulty and we frequently have challenges in closing deals because the business case didn't close, because they didn't know their key performance indicators, or we didn't understand what we had to do to be able to create efficiencies for that customer. Or maybe we just couldn't capture it. Maybe we couldn't document it. And so you can document it. You can, understand the customer's KPIs. You can understand, your product and what its impact on those KPIs are. And you can help the customer to create a business case. You need to be able to do that. And if you can't create a business case, with your customer, then you're going to have difficulty in closing sales. If you want to master sales, you need to be able to understand your customer, understand their KPIs and their business processes, be able to capture it into a document, and to be able to close deals. All right. That's an extremely important part of mastering sales. All right. Next, selling by the numbers. What does that mean? What do I really even mean by that? What does selling by the numbers mean? All right. So you need to understand what the numbers are. All right. I've worked for companies where nobody even knew what your sales goals were at that point in time. All right. That's first of all, a serious problem. But you need to work backwards from the sales goals. You need to look at the revenues that are required. You need to look at our revenues that are required. We need to look at our profitability, that's required. Now, many times in sales, you're not setting the profitability. Maybe you're not setting the price, but you need to pay attention to that, because if the company's not profitable, then you won't be successful, all right? Because they're not going to be able to pay you, right? But we need to look at the revenue, and we need to look at the value of the deals that we're closing, all right? We need to look at those numbers. We need to look at the rate at which we're closing deals, given all the things that I just talked to you about, all right? We need to then look at how many people are we talking to in this process? How many prospects do I have? How many leads do I have? All these are numbers that we need to basically put together. They need to be put together in a way that they're actually in a spreadsheet, or they're in some kind of a system where you're actually able to capture those numbers and calculate out exactly, the number of clients the number of potential clients, the number of prospects that you have to have in play. Because if you don't know how many prospects you have to have in play in order to be able to create a certain amount of revenue, then how do you expect to ever be able to hit those goals? Now, let's take it even one step further, is that if you know how many prospects you have to have, and if you know how many leads it requires to create those qualified prospects, then you also need to look at, how many contacts do you have to have? How many phone calls do you need to make? How many emails do you have to send? How many social media posts do you have to make? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, is all this really necessary? Well, here's the question is that how do you create a quality pipeline? How do you accelerate your sales? Is that by having better control over that process, right? How many follow-ups are you making? And so you can capture those things, right? Not many people do, but you can capture those. I've been doing that for years. I've been doing that to be able to enable myself to know where I am so that I can scale things. And I'll know that if I'm not making enough contacts, or I'll know if I'm not reaching out to enough customers. And the last year that I flew 480,000 miles, I did it because I needed to make up for some gaps that were in the process, all right? The pipeline was low. We needed to accelerate further. And even though it was a temporary situation, I knew I had to engage with more people. And sometimes I would go on a trip and I would meet with 5, 6, 7, meetings, on a trip somewhere. I'd fly internationally and I'd meet with multiple people in order to be able to accelerate what it was that I was doing and to be able to close more deals. Now, ultimately, I had to shift to being able to use more technology to be able to accelerate that further. I hired some more sales administration to be able to help me, some virtual assistants. I engaged with more technology to be able to use technology to be able to scale this. But in the end, it was required to be able to understand the numbers that were going to be required to be able to close the deals. And you can do that. You can do that. You can put the numbers, into a spreadsheet, and you can sell by the numbers to be able to create success. That's an important part of being able to master sales is to be able to sell by the numbers. All right. Okay, let's go to the last point. The last point on this slide is coming out of obscurity. All right. So no matter where you are in the journey of a business, if you want to master sales and if you want to grow, is that if nobody knows who you are, you're never going to sell. I can't tell you how many times I close a deal And afterwards, they said to me, they said, hey, how come I didn't know who you were before? Because your product is awesome. It's amazing. And I didn't even know about you. All right. And so one of the biggest problems that we have in sales is coming out of obscurity, is that coming out of the shadows, and for people knowing who we are, who our company is, what we can do, what customers we've helped, what the successes have been, and you need to come out of obscurity. Now, that can be a daunting task, all right? Because the world is so big, and if we're in aviation, we're working with the world generally, and so it's hard for everybody to know who we are. This is where social media comes in, all right? You need to leverage social media, all right? Is that a few years ago, I decided that it was essential and critical for me to leverage social media. And so about 3 years ago, I've been on LinkedIn since it started. I think I heard about it and I got on LinkedIn, but I really didn't do anything with it for maybe 6 years or so. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I decided it was time to start working a little bit more on it. And I got myself all the way up to 500 connections on LinkedIn. And I felt pretty good about myself because I had 500 connections on LinkedIn. And then I didn't spend a lot of time working on it. And then I realized a couple of years ago that was such a valuable resource to be able to get my message out that I started working on it again. And it wasn't long before, by my reaching out to people and sending messages and communicating with people, that I was able to get to about 3,000 connections. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I've already got myself up to 3,000 connections. That's fantastic. These are 3,000 new prospects and people that I can meet with. But that isn't even close to what you really need. And I think right now I'm sitting on LinkedIn at about 17,000 connections. And there's people that have, well, first of all, LinkedIn has limited you, I think, to 45,000 connections. There's people that have more than that, but they got that before people before they put a limit. People exceeded 45,000, and then after that, people have followers. Like I was on a page, yesterday where somebody had 250,000 followers. All right. And so if you look at my measly 17,000 connections, I mean, that's nothing compared to somebody that has 250,000 followers. All right. So, wherever you are in your journey, whether you're starting out at 100 connections or 500 or 3,000 or 17,000 or 250,000, you're on a journey. And we need to continue to come out of obscurity, and people need to know who we are. And you can only do that by putting in the work. All right. You have to put in the work. You have to engage. You have to do more. You can't be overwhelmed by it. You have to put it in. But what happens is it starts to grow exponentially. I mean, I get people asking me to connect with them constantly, all the time, every day. I get messages from people. I put a post out there and I get 10,000 views. Now that might not be much because, sometimes people, people get, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, so, but for me, that's good. I'm at a good place in my journey and I'm growing, right? There are a lot of people I see out there that are doing better. And what I do is I look at them and I see what they're doing and I try to figure out how to model that. And I try to grow. I try to be mentored by the people that are around me. Because if we're mentored by the people that are around us, we'll continue to be successful. So you need to do the work. You need to put it in. You need to make it happen. All right. So let's go to the next slide. Is that you need to create a plan. You need to decide what it is you're going to do, how you're going to be successful. You have to plan. And whether it be 30 days or 60 days, you can create a plan for success. And you have to have a plan. You can't just work, and just hope. You can't just say, what happens if I work really, really hard? Look, here we are in the third quarter of the year. And, there's not much time left this year, but people come off of summer holidays and they re-engage in September. And September is the best time in our industry to re-engage with people, because what's happening is that they're realizing that they have a lot to get done before maybe some holidays come at the end of the year, and there might be budgets that they have to spend, and there's revenue goals that have to be met. And so right now is the time when you need to jump on this, and you need to have a plan, and you need to leverage the industry, because if you want to be successful in meeting your revenue goals this year, you need to jump on it now. This is the time right now. You can't wait 30 days. You can't wait 60 days. If you wait 60 days, it's all done. We get into the holidays, and the airlines, they don't want to do anything during the holidays. They have IT freezes. They don't let people fly sometimes, because it's so busy. They don't want to do anything. And so if you want to be successful this year, if you want to meet your goals, you need to jump on it right now. This creates definitely a sense of urgency for whatever you're doing. Okay, So let me ask you a question. All right. I have to ask you this question. Is that if you focused on what we talked about as secrets 1, 2, and 3, all right, do you think you could be successful? If you did those things, if you really applied yourself, and if you really understood your customer and you really did the work, and you believed, what's stopping you? What's really stopping you from doing this? I mean, what is keeping you from being successful, right? We need to engage. If you're a sales professional, and if you want to achieve your dreams and your goals, if you want to make more money, if you want to be the top salesperson, you need to engage. You need to do something about it. I'm just going to suggest this is that I have always supported, consultative selling. All right. And so as a consultant, I feel like I've been more successful in selling than at any other time, in my life. And it's because I work really hard to understand the customer and help the customer. And so I'm telling you that if you want to be successful, there was a period in my time where I did nothing but consulting, and that airline that I worked for, they paid $2.2 million for my consulting. And so, consulting can be valuable, to an operation. And so, if you want to be valuable, do consultative selling, because consultants and people that have knowledge are valuable. And if you can combine consulting with selling, you're going to be valuable to that person, and they're going to engage with you, and they're going to see you as a trusted advisor, and they're going to buy from you. All right. So what I'm telling you then is that if you want to move forward faster and further than ever before, you need to leverage technology. You need to leverage consultative kind of practices, and you need to do those things that we said. We said that you need to believe, you need to engage, you need to have a plan, you need to understand the customer, you need to do the work, you need to do the math, you need to do all those things that we've talked about here today. Now, here at Digital Aircraft is that we want to move the industry forward further and faster than ever before, right? And so, hey, I want to ask you a question. Hey, do you think that you could be successful doing these things? I hope so. All right. And the next question I have is that, do you want to be successful? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to get rewarded for what you do? Do you want to have some more time with your family? All right. Do you want to travel less? Right now, I'm spending more time with my family and I'm traveling less. Do you want those things? Do you need that? Do you want to make more money? As a salesperson, those should be our goals and objectives to do that. All right. If you're going to be successful in doing that, you need to take action to do something. You need to have a plan. You need to be able to not just stay on autopilot and move forward. You need to move forward with a plan. Here at Digital Aircraft, we are trying to help people to do that. We're trying to help people to be successful in these spaces. All right. And so because of the amount of people that I've had reach out to me and ask me about sales and how can we leverage sales the way that you have, I have business associates that have just as much experience as what I have. And we've gotten together to be able to support this industry of digital transformation and transforming, whether it be sales or whether it be new businesses or airlines or MROs. And we've put together a program, which is called Sales Mastery Inner Circle Coaching Program. So what we've done is we've taken the people that have the highest probability of success, and we've said, we'll bring you into our inner circle and we'll help you to be successful in achieving those kind of things that I said. Hey, I told you that I've helped people to triple, their lead activity. I've helped someone get 5,000 new clients. I've helped people to come out of obscurity and get their name into social media. I was doing it this morning with some people in Spain. And, I've helped people to grow businesses so they could get new investment. And so, we want, as a team, we want to be able to help people to be successful in sales and to have sales mastery. Okay. And so we've created this inner circle coaching program, and it's a comprehensive 60-day coaching program. All right. And let me tell you what it consists of. It consists of 60 days of group coaching. All right. And so what we're doing is we're trying to find, a maximum of 12 people, 5 to 12 people, which will engage with us in this 60-day group coaching program. We already have people that we're coaching right now, but in this program, you will get 8 weekly group coaching sessions. And the topics will basically be customized for the participants that are in the program, because everybody's slightly different. All right. So if you're focused completely on one sector or another, we'll have to adjust that coaching, that group coaching, to be able to help you. Now, I want to tell you about a situation that I had where when I first realized how valuable this kind of a coaching scenario was. All right. I was operating in a company and I was not thinking big enough. I was thinking that the volume of sales that I needed to do, was fairly small. And I met with a group of people in one of my mentors. I have about 5 mentors that I follow right now. And I went to his house. It was actually in California. And around the table were 12 people that were part of a mastermind. We called it a round table. And in that round table, probably 75% of the people in there were doing multi-million-dollar a year businesses. And so there were very valuable knowledge and experiences that were there. And I couldn't believe it as we went around the table. All we did was, for a day in this particular scenario, we talked about the person's business and we talked about, shared ideas on how that person could increase success in the business. And there were people that had been, had run billion-dollar businesses and people that had run multi-million-dollar businesses in that same room. And the knowledge that came out of that discussion was just phenomenal. There was a gentleman sitting right across the table from me. He was 23 years old and he had achieved $12 million in sales, in 18 months. It was just simply amazing. And then the next, somebody had achieved 6 million and 10 million. And so it really made me look and say, I just don't think big enough. I hadn't been thinking big enough. And so even though I had been in businesses where I had in the past achieved, 2 million, 5 million, 6 million, and at Boeing, I achieved 70 million, but I needed to create a bigger idea of what I was going to accomplish. And so it wasn't just the activities that I was doing. My mind all of a sudden was opened to the fact that I wasn't thinking big enough and I needed to create bigger success. And so coming out of this kind of a coaching situation with people that understand how to create success can not only help you with the activities that you're creating, but the vision and the idea and the mental belief that you can be successful. And so really, in the 60 days of group coaching that we're planning to do, in the 8 weekly group coaching sessions, some of the things that we've talked about in the past were evaluating product placement, evaluating the market, pipeline management, accelerating sales, customer requirements, selling by the numbers, coming out of obscurity. Those have all been things that we've focused on and have helped people to understand how to create success out of those things. And so in this coaching program, that's the type of thing that we're going to do. Now, you ask, well, what's that cost? I mean, what does it cost to have a group of people together, doing coaching like that? All right. Well, listen, I told you that people paid, as much as $2 million for me to be a consultant to an airline. And so the value of that actually is really quite high, is that we put a value of that at $29,000. Now, don't worry, is that we're not going to charge you $29,000 to be part of this group. But let me ask you a question, is that if you were able to close one more deal, would it be worth $29,000 to you? Look, at one point in time when I was working, many years ago, I was working in a consultative or in a sales and consulting job, and I was making $350,000 a year, right? And, $29,000, is just a fraction of $350,000. What if you went from $100,000 a year to $350,000? Would it be worth $29,000? I think it would. I think it would. And so, the value of that is tremendous. The value of being able to accelerate what you're doing so that you can close more deals faster and make more money is tremendously valuable. All right. Let's go to the next piece here. We're also going to provide you, as part of this program, one-on-one coaching. All right. It's important that not just as a group that you evaluate what you're doing, but that you have a sales strategy. Right. And so we're going to give you the opportunity to have a one-on-one coaching session, a strategy session where we can establish a plan for success. And then over that 60 days, we'll work together for you to be able to execute on that plan. And, if you want to meet your goals this year, if you want to meet your revenue goals this year, you have to start on this now. And if you want to put a 60-day plan together, you can't wait for a month or 2 months to be able to do that. It's just not going to happen. You have to have a strategy now to be able to do that. What's that worth? That's worth about $4,999. I just looked at the hours, added it up, hourly rate. That's what it comes to, about $5,000. So right now, the value of this particular opportunity that sits before you, this investment, if you invest in something like this, it's worth, $34,000 right now at this point in time. Next is that, hey, we wanted to throw in a bonus as part of this. For those of you that are on the webinar today, I wanted to throw in an extra bonus, all right? Is that we want to throw in some sales tools that were developed from experience, some spreadsheets, some tools, some things for you to be able to know if you're doing the work or not. Can you predict the outcome of your work? Do you know if your pipeline is high quality? We can show you how to use some software tools to do your work and to know whether you're reaching out to enough people and if the deal is going to close. And so as a bonus, we're going to throw some of those things in as part of that. All right. And, I said that's worth probably $1,000. It's probably worth way, way more than that because the labor and the amount of time and the experience that went into that was tremendous. But, if you look at the value of this particular package right now, it's $34,000, almost $35,000. And so, the question is that, is that if you could increase your sales dramatically and make more money, would it be worth that? Would it be worth that to you? If you could close one more deal, would it be worth it to you? Or maybe you have a smaller value product that you sell. If you could close 5 more deals this year or 4 more deals this year, would it be worth it to you? I think so. All right, so here's what we're going to do though, is we're not going to charge you that. That's not what it's going to cost for people that are in this group. The regular price for doing this would be about $15,000. And so if you wanted to jump in on an inner circle or a round table that was made up of people that are experienced and have this kind of knowledge, you normally would have to pay about $15,000 to do that. All right. I didn't pay $15,000 to go to that one group that I went to, but it was close to that. All right. And so, it normally would be around $15,000. And let me just tell you what we're going to do for the people that are on this webinar today is that we are actually going to offer this kind of a program for only $7,800. All right. I mean, can you believe that? Who would like to pay $7,800 and increase their sales by the end of the year, by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands because they were able to accelerate and to put their self into their job and to do all these things. All right. I mean, the investment of only $7,800 is absolutely small compared to the value, and what you get from something like this. Hey, myself alone, the last year that I was in sales working for a company, I invested over $20,000 in my own self in order to be able to increase the output that I had and to increase sales that I was doing. And so $7,800 is a price that we think has so much value, given that you get, $34,000 worth of value out of that we think that that's an amazing offer. So what we're willing to do at this point is we're willing to give you the opportunity to jump in. We have some people that are already in on the program, and I've had so many people that have reached out to me and said, we want to know how to do better in sales. Digital transformation is an important thing in the industry, and we want to apply that to sales. And so what we're going to do for the next 30 minutes is if you go to sales.digitalaircraft.org, all right, we're going to give you the opportunity to close on this program for only $7,800. Now, you might think to yourself, that's a lot of money. I don't know if that's right for me. All right. Well, it may sound like a lot of money, but let me ask you, what's more money? I mean, if you're a commission-based salesperson, if you can make another $100,000 this year, is $7,800 anything? Or if you can set yourself up to make another $100,000 next year, is this anything at this point? All right. It's a small amount, to be able to put into it. Now, from a company standpoint, is that, look, I mean, that could be one airfare, to the Asia Pacific region or to somewhere else in the world, or it could be 2 airfares, or domestically, it could be just a handful of airfares. I mean, I think I was spending, when I was traveling a lot, I was spending 20,000, 40, 50,000 a month, maybe. I don't remember what the numbers were, but I was spending, 10 times that, in travel expenses. And so, if you look at the comparison of the cost of actually that investment, all right, and what the return is from that, just think about it. If we work together and if you scale this business so that you're able to reach out to more people and you're able to get more prospects into your pipeline, quality prospects that you're going to close, and you actually have to travel 1 less time or 2 less times, what does that do for you personally? What does that do for your family? What does that do for the time you have available? What about the money and the cost to the business? I mean, look at what an advantage that is if we can scale the business and allow you to have more free time and to make more money. The value of that, contribution, that $7,800, that investment is really small compared to, what you're really going to get from it as a result of that. So, sometimes people look at price and they say, I'm not really sure, And then the next thing is that let's talk for a minute about belief. All right, we started out this program by saying you have to believe in yourself. if you're a salesperson, you know that you have to believe in yourself, and you know that as a salesperson that we have highs and we have lows, and I mean, it's really, really hard. You can get dejected. You can get so many no's sometimes that your morale can get down, and you can feel like, man, I've had so many no's, so many people tell me no, it's just so hard, because the conversion rates that we have maybe are, down around 10% or something, or maybe they're 2% or 3%. And so what that means is that the amount of no's that you're getting are quite dramatic. And so if you really want to scale your business, you're going to get more no's, all right? And so it's important that you have a plan, that you understand what your sales goals are, and you understand the mechanics and the details of what it is you're doing. And so one of the things that we've done by having this group coaching is that we've put together a 60-day plan, which basically allows somebody to be around people that are motivated and enthusiastic, for 60 days through this group coaching, and you can reach out to me really at any time. And we can ensure that you're staying on track, and so believing is such an important part of success, that having a group of successful people around you that can reinforce you and support you and give you new ideas and give you suggestions on new strategy, just completely, is really important. I mean, I have at least 5 mentors that are working around me right now, and that's where I get my encouragement and my enthusiasm from. And it's important that you have mentors that you're working with, and people that encourage you and help you and give you good ideas, and people you can talk to about creating success. That's really something that's important, in creating success. And so really believing in yourself is really super, extremely important in creating success. So let's talk about another aspect of this. So for a minute, is that we said during the discussions earlier that you need to understand your customer, all right? And when we're talking about digital transformation, is that people out there in the industry don't, our customers, our prospective customers, they don't all necessarily believe, that they can be successful doing this. And so it is your job to help them to understand that what they're trying to accomplish is possible. And you need to show them, case studies of what you've done. And you need to show them business cases. And so that's why we've included, as one of the tools in this program, a business case template. And we are going to work with you to be able to coach you through how you can establish a business case with your particular customers, with your product. Because if you can convince your customer that the business case can close, that they can actually get a significant return on investment with your product, and implementing your product, then you will definitely close more deals. You will master sales and you will be more successful. And so the coaching that we provide and the tools that we provide to be able to help you to be successful in understanding your customer and contributing to your customer's business case are an extremely critical and important part of success, in selling more and creating mastery in sales and creating that sales curve, to go up. That's a really important part. So yes, group coaching and one-on-one strategy and having the ability to run a business case and to understand your customers' requirements and how to put that into that business case are an important part of creating success. So that's one of the reasons why we've included, those tools in there like that. Now, we also talked about the numbers. We talked about understanding your market, understanding your product. And, I can't tell you how many people I've seen that haven't really done the research, necessary to understand their market or understand their product placement in that market. And so you need to do that. You need to understand the market and your product placement in the market. And, that needs to be something where you create numbers from that. You need to create numbers from that say, this is the number of customers that I'm expecting to be able to go after. And here's what we think our product, cost is going to be, or what our pricing is going to be, and what's the revenue that's going to come from that. And the end result is that you need to create some metrics, from that. And so that's the other reason why we've included this extremely important tool in there, which is sales by the numbers. All right. And, and so having a tool, having a spreadsheet, having a place that you can put numbers into and input that into there so that you can calculate really what the outputs are going to be. You need to reverse engineer, your efforts. All right. if you know you have to have a certain amount of revenue per year, millions of dollars of revenue per year, or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of revenue per year, and if you don't know the amount of engagement you have to have with customers, how can you ever expect to get there? How can you expect to reach your revenue goals if you don't know, the number of calls that you have to make, or the number of customer discussions you have to have, or the number of prospects that you need to have in your pipeline, the number of leads that you need to have? Most of the time when people are working on this, they basically say, well, here's the revenue I have to get, and here's the approximate revenue per customer that we're going to get, and that's the plan. All right. Well, I'm not saying you have to overdo it, but if you don't know exactly, the level of activity you have to reach that goal, then how do you expect to be able to understand your engagement at that point, right? How do you know if you're on track? How do you know if when you have, 5 new clients, conversations per month, if that's going to be enough to be able to achieve, your revenue goals for the year? Maybe you have a gut feel, but you need to have more than that. You need to do the numbers. Every successful person who masters sales and masters the art of creating revenue understands the numbers and understands what they have to do to be able to create those numbers, all right? And so that's why we've included not just the coaching and consulting, but we've also included some tools, and we've included the knowledge and the experience that comes with understanding how to modify those tools to meet your exact situation so that you can keep track of your activity. And so you can understand what kind of activity you have to have in order to be successful, all right? So let me just say this, is that I have had so many people in the industry, come to me and say, hey, we're really in on what you're saying. We're really interested in the digital transformation. And we really believe that the industry needs more of our product. And they're saying, we want to get our name out there, and we want people to see us and understand us. And so, we're really going to help you as part of this coaching and consulting to be able to increase visibility. And so you might say is that, well, people know who we are. Well, I thought that most people knew who the company was, that I worked for most recently. And I found out when I would close deals that someone would tell me routinely, hey, how come I didn't know who you were? All right. And so it's extremely important that you get your name out there, and that you use the tools that are available to get your name out there. And, social media is becoming such an incredibly important part of doing that. I can't tell you how disappointed I was recently when I went to a traditional print and a digital, advertising company, and they were trying to sell me some of their tools and some of their databases and things. And, they wanted, $18,000 a year for their data, and really it had very limited functionality. And I was very disappointed because the data was inaccurate, and it didn't have complete data. And the end result was it really had very limited value to me. All right. And I turned right back around and went back to my social media, to LinkedIn and to some of the other places. And I found out that I could get so much more traction. You can send an email to somebody and you don't even know if it goes to spam or not. It could go to their junk mail, and you never even know whether they even got it or whether they opened it or not. All right. And one of the best ways today, to reach people is through social media, and to be able to reach out to people and message them and get them to respond to you. Every day I'm on social media, reaching out to people, communicating with them. I try to do communications of webinars, and I do interviews with people, and I do videos, and I do posting of those, and I do static posts, and I message people. And, social media is a key critical component of creating success and being able to reach out to people in the industry. And so, for you, out there today, and to be able to scale and to be able to reach more people, you can go to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 conferences a year. And if you're a company that presents at those conferences, you can go spend anywhere between $3,000 and $250,000 to be able to present at a conference. And it's just unbelievable on how much it costs actually to be able to do that. And the sad thing is that I've seen so many salespeople, and I've talked to so many salespeople, which they go to the conferences and they collect business cards and they sit on their phone and they're not really paying attention. And, and the end result is that, they don't really get a really quality engagement and a quality experience with people. And so, I think that conferences are continuing to degrade in their value. And, maybe you don't believe that, but I'm just telling you, just walk around and look at all the money that people are paying, and look how much, people get back from that. I know software companies that have just said, I'm not going to those conferences anymore, and some of them just have no value to people. Some have high value, and, there's some that you want to attend, but there's some that, people spend a lot of money and they end up just wasting their time, in going there. And now what I will say though, is that a lot of times the value that somebody gets out of going to a conference comes from how much you put into it, how much engagement you have and how much time you spend, talking to people and interacting with people and collecting knowledge and information. So yeah, you are directly responsible for the success that you get out of something at a conference. That's why we say, if you go do something, engage, all right, engage and believe and be part of what you're doing. And so if you're going to go to a conference, mentally engage, be part of it, go make it happen. But, people spend a lot of money. I mean, just think about it, is that the last conference I went to, we probably spent, I don't know, $25,000, for a very small space. And that didn't even include, travel and airfare and, the 5 people that were there. And, that was just for the space, I think we paid $3,000 for carpet. All right. So just think about it, is that, $7,800, for something which is going to dramatically increase your sales is really a smaller investment than some of the things that we invest in. If it was $18,000 for data, or $25,000 for a conference space, I mean, that maybe gave me limited value, I challenge you to ask yourself, is $7,800 really an investment that's that large compared to, what we spend on other things? And I have personally dramatically seen people's sales go up as a result of coaching and consulting, and of working with people to create new strategies, and working with people to be able to create new mindsets and increase their sales and have accountability that results from that. And so what we really believe is that the value of this, of this coaching and consulting program is really probably closer to the $34,999 value. And that's why we have that pegged at that. And, and after we have this release of this first group of this program, our inner circle program is going to go back up to 15,000. I know people that have inner circle programs that are 25,000, 50,000. And, and what you're really paying for is you're paying for access to knowledge and for consulting, and you're paying for access to experts, and you're paying for accountability and, coaching and encouragement. And in the end, those things have made dramatic differences in my success, in my ability to achieve my goals and my dreams. Really, in doing that, I can't believe how much dramatic success, that it's really made, for me. So what we've really done is we've put these things together to be able to help people to be successful, and to be able to identify a long-term plan for success. All right. So let's talk about the plan for a minute. All right. So one of the things that we've included in there is a one-on-one coaching, session. And the purpose for that one-on-one coaching session is to be able to understand your business, and to be able to understand your current strategies and what your current goals are, and what actions are you currently taking to achieve those revenue goals this year, immediately this year. And to take some of the knowledge and some of the expertise that we have with the group of people we have, to be able to help you to formulate that strategy, and to be able to ensure that you're on a path for success, and to take a look at that and to see, how can we make adjustments? How can we make changes? Can we scale it? Can we leverage it? Well, I'll guarantee you that you can scale it and leverage it. It's just a matter of talking to people that have done it before, and applying those new strategies, and looking at the numbers, and how do we move forward. And so this one-on-one coaching is really a critical, important part, of having access. All right. And so, my question to you is that, if you had access to, somebody that was really knowledgeable in your industry, for 60 days, all right, and having 8 group coaching sessions, and having tools, and having a one-on-one coaching session to be able to set the strategy, I mean, $7,800 is an investment which is perfectly within grasp, and can create success when you compare that to all the other things that we do, in our industry. And so the strategy session that comes with that we focus on to be able to help create that strategy. I know companies that charge, well over $7,800 just to have a session to be able to create strategy with you, to be able to bring a couple people together and to sit down and work out a strategy with you. I've seen people, plunk down $5,000 a day, $10,000 a day, to be able to have that kind of a strategy session, and so, an investment of $7,800 is not significant to be able to have a strategy session. The outcome of that, the result of that, the benefit that comes from that, is quite dramatic. Next is let's talk about the group coaching for a minute. How does that work? What is it really going to do? What kind of value can come from that? Think about this for a minute. Is that it used to be that in order to be able to meet with a group and to have a discussion with a group, that we had to fly somewhere, right? So I told you most recently, I flew to my coach, and he lives in California in Beverly Hills, and I flew to his house and I met with 12 people, and it was really a group coaching session is what it was, right? And the regular price of that group coaching session was $12,000, right? And so, the value of that group coaching session came from the billionaire that was in the room, the video that we did with another billionaire at that time, with the several hundred, multi-millionaire that was there, and then the people that were in the room that were or at the round table, they were earning incomes that were, over 12, 13, 14, 15 million dollars a year. And so the value that I got from that was just tremendous, because these people were knowledgeable, successful business people. And I was able to communicate with them about my business and what I was doing and what they thought I needed to do for success. And let me tell you, they really opened my eyes. All right. I really started to rethink what I was doing. And I realized that I was not leveraging technology, and I was not scaling the business the way I needed to scale it. And most of all, I wasn't thinking big enough. Right? I wasn't thinking large enough in the goals that I had and what we were trying to achieve for success. And the end result is that when I engaged, following that for the next year and a half, is that I dramatically increased the revenues that I had produced as a result of that. And I would say it came from a couple of things. Number one, it came from my belief, right? My belief actually that's what I needed to do. The strategy was the second thing. So believing that I could do it, creating a strategy that came out of that. And then next, it was actually scaling and executing. So believing and creating a strategy and then scaling and executing were the things which created, the opportunity for me to dramatically increase the revenue. Now, I had to put a lot of work in to be able to do that, right? Because I scaled it quite rapidly, very quickly. And so I traveled a lot, I put a lot of effort into it, but the goal was to be able to achieve those things so that I could back off from that, and that I could put some things in place that would be able to continue forward without so much effort. The goal was to be able to use technology to be able to scale and to reduce the amount of effort, so I could have more time with my family, and so that I could make more money, and so that I didn't have to travel as much. And so really, those were really my personal goals. And so by my engaging and making, that year, I made almost a $20,000 investment in myself. And by my engaging and making an investment in myself, that year, I really dramatically increased the things that I wanted, the satisfaction that I had, and the things that I was doing, and the successes I was achieving. And my personal satisfaction, dramatically went up as a result of that. But it required investment on my part. All right. It required me to invest in the situation, both money and time, in order to be able to get those dramatic returns. And so, in life, we don't get something for nothing. And so, you can ask yourself right now, is that you have two options. You have two options. You can either, number one, you can say, this isn't right for me. I'm not going to invest in this. And if you choose to do that, then you'll have to come up with another way to create the success that you need this year. Maybe you're not meeting your goals. Maybe you're not on track to meet your revenue. Maybe you don't even know if you're on track to meet your revenue at this point in time. I would challenge you to say, you need to find out. You need to find out where you are and what you're doing and how you create that success. And so choice number one is you don't invest in this program and you hope. and what I always say is hope is not a strategy. All right. Is that just hoping for success does not ensure that you will be successful. All right. Next, you could choose to invest in this program. All right. You could choose to invest in this one-time offer. We have 7 more minutes left, and we've included the sales mastery, tools as part of that, as the extra bonus for the people that buy during this webinar program. But, if you want to be successful this year, if you want to meet your goals, and if you're looking for a way to be able to create success, what better way to create success than to work with people that are mentors and that can create accountability for you, and that can help you to be able to have belief in what you're doing, and to even to bring a few tools, to the table. But in the end, those were exactly the things that I did with other people to be able to help them to create success. And the reason I did that is because somebody did that to me. I learned from my mentors on how to create success, and I'm passing that on to other people. And I've had so many people ask me about how do we do this, all right, is that we've decided that it's time to be able to put together this inner circle program to be able to bring people together to help them to create success. Hey, look, I have a passion for aviation. I really want aviation to be successful. And so the other passion I've always had is for helping people. And so, I really want to help people. I'm at a place and time in my life where, one of my major goals in life is to help people. I want to see people successful. I want my kids to continue to be successful. I want my coworkers to be successful. I want the people that I work with to be successful. And you'll find that we go to great lengths to be able to help people to be successful. I'm constantly talking to people and giving them ideas and giving them strategies. I was up till 11 o'clock last night on the phone with somebody in Papua New Guinea, because that was the time zone that they were in. I wanted to talk to that person. I wanted for them to be successful. So I wanted to have that dialogue. And then I was up right away again this morning at 4:30 so I could get ready for, some videos that we were shooting with a gentleman in Spain, and, had to get that set up in the studio and to be able to get ready to do that. And so, what I can tell you is that we are absolutely committed to the success of the people that we work with. And when you join this program, we are committed to your success. And I guarantee you 100%, we give you a money back guarantee that if you do the things that we tell you, that if you do the work, you will be successful. You will achieve your goals and your success. If you do the work, you will be successful, because we want you to be successful. We offer a money back guarantee that if you do the things that we tell you to do, that you will be successful. And if in 30 days you're not happy with what it is that we've done together, then we will give you your money back. All right. So you can be rest assured that take that weight off your shoulders, that when you invest, that there is the opportunity. I've never had anybody ask for their money back ever. All right. And you can be assured that there's zero risk, in this program. All you have is to gain. All right. And so again, you have a couple of choices in life. You can either decide to go one direction, or you can decide to go the other. And your choice should be to be successful. We all want to feel good about ourselves. We all want to make more money. We all want to help people. And that's really what we're all about here at Digital Aircraft, is really helping people in the aviation industry to be successful. And so I want to, encourage you, to believe. And I want to tell you that I hope you've gotten some value, from the things that I've talked about here today, because it was really intended to be just a small amount of value, that comes to you, as part of what we do. And what you'll find is that when I bring my business associates together, as part of this program, and we engage, is that there's so much experience in the aviation industry that comes from those people. There's operations experience, there's maintenance experience, there's software experience, there's sales experience. All of that comes together to be able to be brought to you in this inner circle coaching program, to be able to create success for you. And all you have to do is make a decision to move forward. All right. And so, for 3 more minutes, you can jump onto this program at that $7,800 price point, and you'll get the bonus tools that are part of that. And not only will you get the bonus tools, but we're going to work with you to customize them to be able to meet your needs. So what we'll do is, for the by the numbers spreadsheets, we'll work with you to figure out what your parameters are for success. what is the price of your product and what are your revenue goals, and figure out exactly how many appointments you have to have and clients and how many phone calls you have to make, and what is really the plan, what is the strategic plan by the numbers, to be able to create success for you, this year. And so, we'll customize that, we'll tailor work that with you so that you can, create success. And then, like I said before, the other part that's really extremely important is that other tool, that other bonus tool is the business case, calculator. And so what we want you to be able to do is we want you to understand, better, most of you understand customers' KPIs, but, when I went to Boeing, I found out that, people's understanding of key performance indicators was quite different, somebody might have thought, well, there's only 3 main things which determine a business case for fuel efficiency. All right. And that was descent, and that was arrival fuel, and that was basically the climb and descent profile. And, those things were what determined fuel efficiency. But the fuel efficiency team took it one step further, and they went and looked at almost 70 different factors that affected fuel efficiency. And by putting those together, they were able to document and sell fuel efficiency programs far better than what they had ever done before, because they really understood the customer and they put the effort into it. And they did business cases which really revolved around the customer's needs and requirements. And they were able to sell a lot more as a result of that. So that's the kind of thing that we've done, taking a look at different sectors of the market. And then how do we work with people to be able to create a business case? All right. So those are really valuable things. And so now the choice is up to you. You're going to have the opportunity to be able to jump in on the program, or, and we really want you to. We have a few spots left, and we're looking forward to working with you, say, over the next 60 days. And I want to end this webinar today the way I always do. I want to say fair winds and following seas to you, and have a great day. And I'm looking forward to working with you as part of this program.